Welcome back, everybody, to the final sessions of this year's conference. And I hope the parallel sessions on organisational and workforce governance went well for you all. Hasn't time moved quickly since we started our conference yesterday morning? And we have had such a full program going right across the reforms and trying to offer as much clarity and as much guidance as possible. It has been intensive, but hopefully for all of you, hugely productive. Now, the commitment and the determination that you all very clearly have to be ready for the new Act and to realign where it's needed, to deliver safe, quality care with the older person right at the centre of all of you do, really has been evident, and especially through all of the thoughtful questions that we've had over the past 2 days. And there will be final opportunities this afternoon for you to deliver those questions once again. Change is always challenging, and navigating the best way forward and bringing your teams with you, of course, can be quite a difficult thing to do. And while the sector has been getting ready for the new Act over the last several years, the roadmap for getting there has certainly evolved in various ways over that time. So, in our next session, with the none too subtle title of Ready, Set, Go, our panel is going to focus on some of the practical strategies for getting ready for the new regulatory framework and how best to use that 3-month runway up to the 1st of November. And then our final session this afternoon, a little later this afternoon, will look to the year ahead after the 1st of November and give you some signposts about the upcoming priorities of the Commission and the Department as, together with you, the work continues to build public trust and confidence in the aged care sector as a whole. But first of all, let's explore some final preparations for the new regulatory framework, and let me introduce to you our panellists who've come up onto the stage already. We have Bronwen Jaggers, Executive Director, Engagement, Education and Communication from the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. Gayle Smith, Chief Executive, JewishCare Victoria. Ben Poona, Co-Manager Community Safety and Social Services at Tangentyere Council. Fonda Voukelatos, Deputy Chief Executive Corporate Services at Uniting AgeWell. Filomena Cervarella, Executive General Manager Strategy and Care Excellence at Regis Aged Care. And Maria Falado, Acting Assistant Secretary, New Aged Care Act Transition Branch from the Department of Health, Disability and Ageing. And Bronwen is going to facilitate this session, so I will hand over to you, Bronwen. Please welcome our panel.
Thanks very much, Richard. I'd like to start by joining my acknowledgement to the other acknowledgements we've had over the last 2 days of the Wurundjeri people whose lands we're on today. Also acknowledge the Ngunnawal people on whose land I live and work in Canberra. Thanks everyone for coming back in after lunch. Thanks for joining today's session on getting ready for the new Aged Care Act in practice. Under the Aged Care Act, the Commissioner, Liz, and through her the Commission has a formal engagement, education and capability building role for providers and their workers, responsible persons, older people and their supporters. As Richard said, we've all been working towards the commencement of the new Act for years now. For providers and for the Commission, this has included changes to our policies, our systems and our processes. We've all needed to help our workforces to understand and be ready for the change. Of course, as many other people have noted, when we reach the 1st of November, it's the start of our journey in delivering better aged care, not the finish line. Our change journey will continue as we all adjust and learn from experience and from each other. In the lead up to this conference, we asked you how you were progressing in your preparations and what kind of information and guidance you're most interested in. And I've got just a couple of slides that go through that. So on this first slide, we can see that unsurprisingly, when we surveyed you in April this year, most people said they'd made a good start on their preparations, but they still had a lot to do. Also note that over a third of our respondents back then were already confident that they would be ready. And you gave us some great feedback on the type of support that you would value to have clear communication about our expectations as your regulator, practical examples and guidance, peer discussion and sharing experiences. And I hope that you've experienced some of those over the last couple of days. That's what we've been aiming for in the conference. And then this slide unpacks those sentiments, and it shows some of the free text responses that we received in the survey. I won't read them out, you can see them there, but the themes that have come through are all about culture, reflecting on the challenge of getting the settings right in terms of training, avoiding information overload and avoiding burnout. And people were really thinking and asking questions about how to communicate well to our staff and to the older people receiving care. And so reflecting on what you told us, this segment of the conference is intended to be a really practical session to share some insights about how some providers have been getting ready and what they're going to do in these last 3 months ahead. And we've also got myself and Maria from the department and the Commission to talk through some of the resources that are available. So I'll just step over and we'll start our conversation. And this final slide, which I think we can take down but we'll put back up towards the end, provides links to the free resources that are available from the department and from the Commission as well. And I think you're all across how to ask questions in the app and to come up and ask questions at the microphone. So we'll have a conversation for around 25 minutes and then we've got 15 minutes for questions. So please send them through when they occur to you. So I'm going to ask each of you first if you could just give us a brief overview of your service and of what you've been doing to get ready for the 1st of November. And I'll start with you, Gayle.
Thanks, Bronwen. Hello, good afternoon to you all. I'm Gayle Smith, I'm from JewishCare Victoria. We're a not-for-profit organisation located in the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne. For nearly 180 years, JewishCare has provided a range of aged care, disability and social services for Melbourne's Jewish community, and we continue to do so today. We have 396 residential aged care beds across 3 homes, approximately 580 HCP clients and about 510 CHISP clients. We also provide the claims conference program for approximately 500 Holocaust survivors who are living in Melbourne. In preparing for the new Aged Care Act, we took a really very deliberate approach, and I just wanted to outline 4 elements that we really focused on. First of all, looking out. We've not done this alone. We've used available resources, attended forums and webinars and learnt from others. At times it's felt like an abundance of wealth in terms of which webinar we might attend, but we have really appreciated being able to get a lot of information and learn. We've deliberately used our own clinical governance framework, and it's provided the bumpers for us to ensure that we're addressing all of the elements. We've had a deliberate and considered action plan, and despite feeling the looming deadlines, we did undertake a full gap analysis against the new Aged Care Act, the strengthened quality standards and the new requirements for support at home as they became available, and we've developed a plan that we're continuing to implement. And last but not least, I want to mention our key stakeholder engagement plan, including our residents, clients and their families, our frontline staff, our frontline managers, our middle managers and our executive and board. And we've been really working with all of our stakeholders because they're really the key to successful implementation. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Philomena.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. We've taken a very similar approach. At Regis Aged Care, we have a very large residential aged care portfolio of currently 68 homes, as well as home care. So our approach really was about how do we support each of our individual homes from an embedding sustainability perspective, and then how does that cascade to a very complex governance process at an organisational level. So very similar, we had a number of stages, and the first was actually just that inquiry phase. What does this mean? What does it look like? What are the statement of rights? There's a lot of information out there, so as an executive and a board, we read the Aged Care Act. As the rules came through, we read those. There's some incredible information from the Commission, the guidance. The audit and evidence framework has literally become my trusted advisor. If we didn't know anything, well, what are the questions in there and how can we use that to self-reflect? And then that self-reflection phase, which was through a gap analysis, but also through really important discussions with our key stakeholders. We want to use the opportunity for improvement, and I'm going to steal from what Peter Edwards said earlier. I think the new Aged Care Act and strengthened standards make explicit what is already implicit. So it's not about throwing everything out. It's not like we're not doing any great work. We actually are. It's about how do we move ourselves to the next level. And there are some new concepts and new important conversations that we have, but there is a really great starting point there. So we really went through the lens of what do we need to improve internally, because that's what we want to do, but also where are our key streams of work. And like most other organisations, we had a key stream of work around how we needed to uplift governance. Education and training was really big, but from an awareness perspective, but also from a training and competency perspective. We wanted to take the opportunity to really redesign our experience for our consumers, our residents and clients. What does that look like in the context of holistic assessment? What does that look like in terms of information when you're coming into care? And of course, policy procedure uplift. So I'll stop there. I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to talk further about that. Thank you.
Thanks. Ben, a much different service, but tell us a bit about yourself and your service.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to say Wura, and in my native tongue, I'd like to say Kia ora no tātou kātoa te ira mane, pera katoa te ititanga te enua te monei. So I extend that recognition and acknowledgement to the traditional landowners that we meet on today. My name is Ben. I am from Tangentyere Council Aboriginal Corporation in Alice Springs. The Tangentyere Council has been in operation for almost 45 years, delivering human services to 18 different town camp communities of Aboriginal people. There's a misconception sometimes that Aboriginal people are one, but there are very many multicultural and diverse Aboriginal groups where I come from, which adds to the complexity of the care that we are expected to deliver. We are a very small aged care provider delivering CHSP and home care packages to roughly around 200 community members, 80% of whom are all at risk of homelessness or are homeless. So our approach to getting prepared for the new Act is to just move, to kind of get a move on, really. For us, it was just getting started. That was half the battle, letting people know that a change was coming, and from there, responding to the clients and the community members and staff, asking us, well, what is that change? How does that affect me? What do I need to know about it? Who do I need to tell? We base our our way of communicating information through our bush telegraph, where one person tells the next person who tells the next person. It's a great resource for us. We also have to take in mind that people speak multiple languages, and English is also maybe the third or fourth language that people speak. So written forms of communication, even if they are written in language, actually sometimes don't work, because most people learn by hearing their language spoken. So for us, it's adapting resources into audio and visual ways, and then on the very, very lowest of levels, as an example, telling people about the Act and changes has been a communication from me to my board, to my staff, and then the staff dispersing that information to the clients who then, at all of our events, whether it's an event on foot care, embedding some of those informations in small small little bursts so that people are like, oh yeah, the Aged Care Act thing, yeah, that's right, that's coming up. Embedding some of that stuff in our newsletters that go out to clients. For me, I record something audio and then I just send it to my staff and go, okay, get that out there to people. It's very simple as just picking up my phone and going, hey, this is also, add this to your layer of knowledge is what I kind of refer to. So that's a very broad way of what we've been doing. I'll hand it over now.
Fabulous, thanks. I'm going to skip to Fonda. Tell us a bit about your services and what you've been doing. I'm coming back to you, Maria, don't worry.
Me and Maria were arguing, we're saying where we're going to sit. Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name's Fonda Voukelatos. I'm a Deputy CEO at Uniting AgeWell, Victoria and Tasmania. We've become a relatively large aged care provider over the past few years. So currently we have 21 residential aged care facilities serving over 1,600 people per year. We've also got a pretty thriving home care business which includes home care packages and CHSP funded services, and we support in the order of about 15,000 people per annum with those programs. And obviously the other component to our business is a small retirement village living portfolio, which is sometimes attached to our residential aged care sites, sometimes a little bit off centre in local communities. For us, the starting point in terms of preparing for the reforms has been, our board oversight. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about governance. So our board are extremely keen in terms of understanding the reforms. They commissioned a body of work a while ago when the Royal Commission into Aged Care was coming into effect, and through that mechanism we developed, I think it was about 146-point action plan in terms of understanding what the recommendations meant, but what the implications were for our organisation. So our board are extremely keen around that, and then obviously have set up the essential frameworks for our working within the organisation with management. And to that end, we've got a working group that tries to decipher, the reforms, and every second week I look around, there seems to be a new reform initiative going through, and what does that mean, and what are the implications and consequences and unintended consequences, and disbenefits and benefits, yada yada. But we've got we've pretty much taken a project management approach to it and a program logic approach to it. Chunk down the work, look at the elements when they're coming on, make sure we're well prepared. What I like to think we've got internally is a coalition of the willing, where we engage with our participants, and participants, call them consumers or clients, but we call them depends on what people want to be called, right? But importantly, our consumer advisory board is really important around that, as are our other essential internal mechanisms. So we've got a raft of actions and activities, a live intranet site, which has got the information in there, ready reckoner documents, training and education, we've heard a little bit about that. I've got the opportunity in my role to work across the business on many different areas. So you bring in your systems team, your procurement contracts management team. There are implications for every facet of the organisation in terms of being ready for these reforms in the Aged Care Act. So, but what we must not forget, and what we're very keen on as an organisation, is the outcome for the person, their family and the local community. So anything that we do must be very deliberate around that. And sometimes that creates friction, right? Because we're talking about some of the machinery here. And it can't be so administratively burdensome that people on the ground can't understand it. And, I think, Bronwen, your slides at the start really highlighted some of the concerns that people had. And is it going to be easy, elegant? And will the common person on the street who's accessing a service in aged care be able to understand it and be able to take up their human rights, right? How are we going to support them with that? So, top of mind for our organisation. Thanks.
Thank you. And Maria, tell us a little bit. We do have the link online, and we've had our stands out in the foyer, but tell us an overview of the supports that the department is putting in place for people.
Thanks, Bronwen. So we've been working in partnership with the Commission as well as seeking advice from the Aged Care Transition Task Force and monitoring and adapting our approach in response to their feedback. There's two key documents which outline all of the readiness activities. They are the Sector Change Plan as well as the Sector Readiness Plan on the Commission's website. So they outline the communication, engagement, guidance and training materials that the Department, the Commission and Services Australia are planning to deliver or have delivered, and when those materials are coming. So both of those documents are updated regularly and include the links to all of those resources. Just to highlight a couple of key resources for you now, we've developed something called the Priority Actions List. So we heard pretty clearly from providers that they were receiving a flood of information. They weren't sure what to prioritise and what to do when. So what this document aims to do in the one place is provide all of the guidance across all the reforms in that one document. So it's structured in a way that makes it clear what's relevant for all providers versus, home care, resi or specialist providers, and also says, these are the actions you need to take with your clients, these are the actions for your operations and processes. It's available in Word, so you can download it and also tailor it for your service. I know that people have been waiting for the summary to the aged care rules. That's on the department's website now, so you can see that in advance of the exposure draft of the rules, which will be coming shortly. There's also a range of materials across the Support at Home program. Just to highlight a couple of things there which are incredibly helpful. There's the program manual, there's the provider transition guide. There's also a range of fact sheets and specific guidance, for example, on pricing and submitting payment claims. And they've also stood up a collaboration space for home care packages providers as a community of practice. So across the website there's booklets, fact sheets, FAQs, recorded webinars and videos, and I know the Commission has the same. If you do a search for rights for older people, you'll also find our plain English summary on the rights. And hot off the press, and I know that Sonia spoke about it this morning, is our fact sheet on the regulatory and governance roles, which was discussed. So that's on the website too. Also want to do a plug for our comprehensive suite of education and training resources. So the Department and the Commission have put in a lot of effort into a whole heap of modules. So we've got training on the New Aged Care Act, and we've got printable resources as well that people can download. There's a range of training and modules on the Support at Home program. So that includes information on the program as well as specific modules relating to service delivery. And the Commission, of course, have a well-established learning program for providers. So highly recommend looking at their strength and quality standards, a range of materials there, as well as case studies and information on the audit process. And finally, the Commission's online learning platform, Alice, is where you can find all of those modules. So really great platform. And providers can also download those modules and put them into their own learning management platforms as well. Thank you.
Great, very comprehensive. Thanks, Maria. And it has warmed my heart to see the queue at the Commission's stand out in the foyer. I think they're still there for a short time after the session today. So my next question I'm going to ask Philomena and Fonda. What has worked particularly well for you in preparing to deliver care in line with the new strength and quality standards and the Act more generally? What advice would you give to other providers, and maybe the lens to think about? I think people would be interested to hear what do you think your staff would say are the things they're most looking forward to, and what are the things that they're a bit worried about, and how are you helping them over that hurdle? So I'll start with you, Philomena.
Great, thank you. I really wanted to talk about the power of co-design and really working in collaboration with our consumer advisory bodies. It's actually been transformative in terms of how we've applied and implemented, particularly from a strength and standards perspective. So we have 6 consumer advisory bodies, 1 for home care and 1 in each state and territory in which we operate. We have an executive and board member attend each consumer advisory body. And the way that it's structured is that our board will refer a particular area for discussion and input at each meeting. And then we also have an area of discussion and focus of interest to our consumer representatives. At our consumer advisory bodies, we will share our policy and processes as relevant to whatever that topic is. And there'll be very targeted areas for discussion of improvement and what we need to do moving forward. When our board asked us to take sexuality and intimacy to one of our consumer advisory body meetings, I thought, oh my goodness, how are we going to do this? Because we don't transparently talk about sexuality and intimacy readily. And I think that's been a key strength of the strengthened standards in terms of bringing this particular area to the table and for it to have an equal voice. So didn't really know how it was going to land, and those conversations have honestly really helped shape what we are doing moving forward. And I do acknowledge that every approach is very different within different organisations and for each consumer. What we heard at our consumer advisory bodies is that our consumers didn't want us to use the language sexuality and intimacy. They wanted us to use the language belonging and companionship. That's helped shape the language we use internally. That having a conversation about sexuality and intimacy is something that you build to, and it relies on really trusted relationships with staff who are very skilled to have conversations. And it's not a first day conversation on admission. And on admission, it's even really simple questions like, do you like to be hugged? Do you have a partner? Would you like to have privacy with your partner? And privacy for our residents and their partners meant things like, I just want to sit on a couch together and hold hands and watch a movie and no one come in. So for us, that's really helped us think of it as an organisation, what we need to do to help make sure that what we're delivering is very person-centred and meaningful for our residents and their families. So I just really wanted to highlight just that power of co-design. We've got a number of other examples. We've really transformed our admission process as well through significant co-design workshops with our staff and with our residents and families. Our consumer advisory bodies spoke to us about family handbooks and how the information for families need to be tailored, and it's very, very different. So for us, just listening to the voice of our consumers has been a really important element of what we've been doing. I think our staff are looking forward to the 1st of November. I think it's a really important milestone. It will signify still the beginning of a very long journey, but I think they're most looking forward to that. And I think probably the thing that we still need to help support our staff with is just that change and that uncertainty, because there still is a little bit of uncertainty around what the future's going to look like. And I must just do a call out how incredibly agile and resilient our aged care workforce is. And so for me, that's just about supporting the conversations. It's about doing really practical things. We have got weekly forums where our leadership team can come and just have coaching on, I don't know what this particular, new language is, what does it mean? We've done quite a bit of work with our teams around translation of material into other languages. And through that process, what we actually learnt is that our teams, no matter our staff members, no matter what language they speak or their cultural background, they would actually prefer information in plain English. So we've, supported them through that to help support any uncertainty that they may be having. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. And everything you described is so aligned with the statement of rights of listening to older people about what they want as they enter your service and live. It's their home as they're living there. Fonda, have you got a practical example of what's worked really well in your services? What would you advise people have a think about adapting?
Thanks, Bronwen. So one one of the areas of, interest for all of us, or many of us, is, the supported home reforms and tackling those and understanding those and unpicking them. So what Uniting AgeWell has undertaken and what we've got in place, and I'll talk about it on a management front, so I won't talk about the board. So we've got a internal home care governance committee, which is a cross-purpose group that looks at all the different buckets of work which are necessary to go live. Well, there was going to be 1 July, but looking at 1 November now. And, that program logic approach looks at financial sustainability because, the financial model and the pricing is one element, but it's not the only element. The whole review of the notion of, people attaining their human rights and personhood and risk enablement and all that, how do you embed that back within your business? Because we feel that we're always doing it right. But you could take a very singular, myopic view on it. So, when Philomena speaks about co-design, so we are pretty dedicated to co-design, so we do that via formal research partnerships, but also through the trending of complaints and feedback as well. So, one great example for me has been around, the home care package statement, which a while ago we sort of broke ranks with our client information management system vendor and co-designed something with complainants and people whose language wasn't English, basically. Appreciating that 50% of Australians, doesn't matter what nationality you're from or what age bracket, are financially illiterate, right? So you've got to make it simpler. And what we found, our complaints were going down from 100 a month down to about 5. It's pretty significant, but it took a lot of effort to get to that point. So Maria, when I saw the draft template statement come up on the website a little while ago, it was too much. So, from us as a provider, but, again, we had an obligation, or we felt we did, to go back and speak to the department around that. And to the department's credit, they took the feedback on board because it has to be simplified. So financial sustainability, really important. Change management is really important, and managing the fatigue. We're having to change our systems. We're having to invest in that. It's not like we've been receiving grants and all that to actually move forward with our reforms. We've had to look at our balance sheet, right? And our savings as a business to do that. What does that look like? So therefore, pivoting resources away from BAU into the reforms and having a forward edge. So we've got a project manager, we've got a project team behind that, we've got a project methodology, risk-based work as well, engagement with external parties, in particular a party to help us with our financial modelling, a law firm as well to make sure that we're on track with things. The agreements are really important. But penultimately, checking in with our customers at every point. We've revised our tools. The one thing that we haven't done is restructured. Because when I go back to what our staff are talking about, they're saying the Aged Care Act's amazing. Human rights, big tick. The sense of personhood, big tick. Authentic relationships, big tick. But that's also prefaced with the notion of what's it going to mean for me, as an employee, are you going to restructure and am I not going to have a livelihood going forward? And from my perspective and that of our organisation, the most important asset for us, and we could talk about assets, in forms of buildings and fabric, etc., is our staff. So if they don't make things happen and they don't relay the messages and they're not well equipped and they're not great ambassadors for what we're trying to achieve, all of us, you have nothing. So, we've taken that perspective and we've tried to reassure people through a number of forums. Like I said, intranet, I run open mic sessions every month in the business. I can't believe how well subscribed they are, but I'm glad everyone attends as far as possible. We've got a change management process. We don't often get it right, and I think one of the things for me as an executive is name it. If you're not getting it right, put your hand up and say, we've missed that. But how are we going to learn from that? So we have to have that learning culture as well, because this is iterative. And I think November 1 is only the start, right? So what I say to people is get to the starting line and then try to smooth it out the next 12 months.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I'd like to focus on building cultural capability, and I'd like to ask Gayle and Ben this question. The Statement of Rights has a strong focus on providing culturally appropriate, trauma-informed and healing-focused care. And of course, building cultural capability is multifaceted and goes well beyond just delivering a training course for staff. Can you tell us about your approach to ensuring culturally appropriate care for the older people in your care? And I'll start with you, Gayle, and then move to you, Ben.
So I think just to start with, I wanted to describe this story, I guess, through my experience that I observe when I do my leadership walkarounds, and regularly I go and have lunch in our residential homes and share a meal with our residents. But also I think when I came to look at culturally appropriate care, to see it through the lens of the strength and standards was actually really very helpful. And whilst this outcome rightly sits within Standard 1, the individual, because culturally appropriate care is person dependent, but it does actually sort of emanate right through all of the other standards. So for each of us, what we want as culturally appropriate care will depend on our experiences, our social context, our traditions and our customs, and that's the same for all of the older people that we work with. So our approach to culturally appropriate care is actually about knowing each resident and client, knowing their story, knowing their preferences, their needs and their experiences. But that on its own is not enough. We also have to deliver and be deliberate about how we wrap around each resident and client and to make sure the services and care we provide meet their services. The important aspects of culturally appropriate care are not what we espouse, but actually are about what people experience. It's what they see, it's what they hear, it's what they smell, it's what they experience through interpersonal interactions. What people remember most is how we made them feel. There is a Yiddish word, I'm getting to my Jewish language skills now, the word's Hamish. And Hamish means warm, welcoming, cosy and homely. And that's what we're really trying to seek within our culturally appropriate care. We want that for our residents and clients, we want it for their loved ones, and we also want it for our staff, that they feel connected and welcome in the environments in which they work. Ensuring culturally appropriate care is a team effort. It doesn't just sit with one group. It includes our residents, clients, their families, our nursing staff, our personal care workers, our food services assistants, our chefs, our kitchen staff, the lifestyle team, the property and maintenance team and all our other support services. Everybody needs to be aligned behind it. Obviously, the training of staff is actually critically important, but actually there's so much more to it. And I just want to give a couple of examples of that through the standards. Obviously, Standard 1, the individual, and care and services. So the Standard 1, the individual, gets us to dignity, respect, rights, and taking a really strong person-centred approach. But then the care and services is where we start to understand about hearing people's stories. Now, we put that in a context of assessment and care planning, but actually what it is hearing about people, their needs, their wants, their desires. And so that's a really sort of important approach. The organisation and all of our clinical governance systems that sit around that actually really help with all of that. And I just wanted to briefly talk about the feedback system. We, like everybody, have both formal and informal feedback systems, and they all count. We often get the most feedback from Elstonwick Coles on Saturday morning, as the community members will give feedback to either staff or board members that they meet there. And you know, that's actually a really connected way of providing feedback, and we take that equally seriously to any other way. The residential community is obviously really important because culturally appropriate care is about social cohesion and community connectedness. I can't not talk about actually the impact for the Jewish community and JewishCare of the rise of anti-Semitism and what that's meant in terms of culturally appropriate care. And you can imagine how that must be being experienced for particularly older members of the Jewish community, many of whom are Holocaust survivors. I think we're probably the only aged care service that has guards at our doors. And that's become a really normal part of actually how we go about providing both a culturally appropriate and a safe service. The guards are valued and highly regarded members of our Jewish care family and actually know a lot about the residents and the people who are coming and going visiting them. When you get to our facilities, you're likely to be welcomed by the rabbi, particularly if you arrive on Friday afternoon or Friday evening. You will share in the preparations for and the celebrations for Shabbat, the Jewish Sabbath. Our homes are busy and they are quiet, depending on people's preference. There's a quiet discussion newspaper group with volunteers. There's an outings program to the beach most recently. There's a lunch program in the volunteers' homes. And of course, our residents and clients can choose their own quiet private spaces, as you were describing. Our Jewish Life calendar ensures we celebrate all the Jewish holy days and the festivals. If you come to the Purim festival, which is the celebration and dress up, you're likely to see the rabbi dressed as a tree, reading the Torah. I wanted quickly to just mention in the clinical care standard, the work we're doing around palliative care and end-of-life care. There are really particular traditions, norms, and I think requirements within the Jewish culture around end-of-life care. And the work that we're doing is involving the rabbis, the residents, the families, our Chief Medical Officer and the broader community around what we will be doing in terms of palliative and end-of-care life. Culturally appropriate care is really evident in our buildings and environment. If you walk into our home, we want it to be a place that our residents and families can feel proud of as their own home. Our homes and community centres are not only located within the Jewish community, in the Bagel Belt as we call it, but they are distinctly Jewish. You will see a shul in every single one of our homes. You'll see a sukkah, which is the place, the outdoor eating area, and there's a mezuzah at each door, so you know you're in a Jewish environment and you know that you're safe. The meals and dining experience, as you can imagine, and I won't in the interest of time go into that, but they are really a very sort of important and significant part of our culturally appropriate care. I did just want to finish by saying, the strengthened standards do provide the guidance for culturally appropriate care, and that's really at the heart of what we do and we're going to continue to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Gayle. Ben, can you tell us about how you're preparing your service and your staff to deliver culturally appropriate care?
Yeah, sure. I think I'd like to talk about cultural safety. It's not clearly defined really anywhere, and I think it's because no one knows how to define it. A very deliberate Google search has cultural safety defined as prioritising and treating individuals with respect, acknowledging their unique cultural identities and lived experiences, and ensuring their dignity is upheld. Whoopie-doo, that doesn't mean anything to me. When it comes to... For me, cultural safety is a value. It's a value that you bring from your own upbringing. When we approach delivering care to Aboriginal people in remote communities, I've always adopted the shoes off approach, which is when you go to someone's house, you take your shoes off. Because right at that point of entering, you've immediately taken yourself away from the situation, put yourself in that person's shoes. You're immediately offering respect to the person who owns the home. I wouldn't walk in and just help myself to the fridge, grab a beer and, crack open, crack on the footy. I leave that to my Uncle Pete. But, it's just that kind of mindset that you have to take. And that's something that has, that people have already in whatever area you live in. One of the greatest things about my experiences working in Arundel Land and in Barnsworth and Alice Springs is that that's the model that everyone kind of builds on, which you learn from your family members. And we're very fortunate to be guided by our board, who are all Aboriginal town camp community members and leaders who help guide our strategic way of being, how we approach people, how we speak to people, and how we acknowledge and respect people. So for us, it's something that we learn. We have also experienced a bit of growth of non-Aboriginal people coming into our service purely because of staff shortages. And that's been a scary thing to actually take on board. But what we've been seeing is sharing the value system that we've had with our non-Aboriginal staff has actually been really nice to see and embrace, and a reminder that what we've been doing for inherently, without even thinking, has always been culturally safe. So I'd like to remind everyone, when you think about that, is the shoes off method. If you don't understand, just ask me later. I'll talk about it. But one thing that I'd also like to go on about is when it comes to providing culturally safe care, the resources that have been currently developed, although they're great, still don't address the cultural safety needs of our clients, in whichever context you might be in. There's always this level of adaptation that needs to occur. And for us, when the standards, the previous 8 standards were released, we then put that in our focus groups through our meetings, our events, and we asked our clients, we asked our staff, what do these mean to you? We broke it down, and we'll be doing the exact same thing with the strengthened standards, because people want to see themselves in the information that they're provided with. It's very hard to show old girl Florrie, a piece of paper from the commission. She's like, what's that? Oh, no. Throw it away. It's rubbish. She wants you to be able to say, this is, you want to create that rapport that you have with your client to say, hey, buy into this information that we've received. This is what's coming. This is what the government has told us is going to be happening. This is how it's going to affect you. If you've got a problem, tell me and I'll tell them. So it opens up that conversation, but it can only occur if you have rapport, if you've got strong relationships built from the start, and that essentially is being culturally safe.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Great answer. Time for a few questions. The first one, I think, Maria, may be for you and I to have a crack at. CHSP feels like a forgotten element here. Solutions for issues in relationships between CHSP and HCP providers, particularly brokered services, remain unclear. Who do impacted CHSP providers go to for help? And I sat in on the 2 CHSP sessions before lunch, and I could certainly hear this message coming through in the feedback and the questions in those sessions, and in other sessions throughout the 2 days. So I'm certainly going to go away, look at those where we may have gaps in the guidance that we're providing as a commission. Really happy to take feedback directly from people. I think my contact details are in the app, so please do reach out. I've probably now invited 1,000 emails, that's okay. So your message has been heard. We will take a look at our materials and see what we can do to fill in and answer the questions that you have been asking over the last couple of days. But Maria, is there a particular place that these people can go to get some more guidance from the department? And
echo your comments myself as well. Happy for people to reach out directly. There is some information on the website already, and there is a community of practice in place. So there is a CHSP reforms page on the department's website. It includes information on the 2025 to 27 funding extension, as well as the 25 to 27 CHSP manual. There was a webinar in June, which has the webinar slides and FAQs on the website as well. And on the website, we've also got information around the mapping and decks regarding the home adjustments. So there is some information there, and we're building more information as well, but happy for people to reach out with their specific questions as well.
Thank you. Philomena, I might put you on the spot for this next one. What's the biggest gap you identified in your organisation You talked about doing a gap analysis a fair while ago, I think. What steps did you take or have you planned to close the gap to meet the requirements of the Act?
I would have to say it would be awareness raising in education and training. So I think there were, we very specifically talk about awareness raising, which is different to education and training and competency. We've taken the opportunity to really look at our framework all the way from the beginning experience, from when a staff member enters into our organisation, how we set up the expectations within our position descriptions, within our recruitment practices around, key requirements, all the way through to our onboarding experience, and then to our annual competency mandatory training programs, then all the way through to our professional development. So it's been quite extensive. We took the opportunity to, from an awareness perspective, we wanted to empower our homes to be able to, with a toolkit, to then apply and for it to be meaningful at that particular home, because every single service is different. So as you were saying earlier, Ben, everything does need to be adaptable in terms of the particular audience. So from an awareness perspective, it was empowering our leaders, really making sure that they're across what it means, and then enabling them to capability build, both from an employee perspective and a resident and family member perspective. And I think the other area within that was the competency framework. We can't think that because we've given someone an education package and we've enabled them to answer some questions that they've got it right, that that's a competency framework. So we've really, again, just taken the opportunity to look at what does this mean ongoing and how do we build that ongoing competency and capability across all of the areas aligned to the new Aged Care Act and strengthened standards.
Thank you, that's great. I think we have a question on the floor.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Dan Kalenchik. Like Ben, I've come down from Buntua, Alice Springs, from Central Australian Aboriginal Congress. We provide a small amount of CHSP allied health services for a very, very large part of Central Australia. And I just wanted to, I guess, back Ben up. Love everything you're saying, Ben, and love all your work, as always. I think some of our challenges from a health perspective are the workforce issues. So we're trying to build our Aboriginal workforce by doing cadetships and training local people, and because at the moment we're relying on a lot of non-Indigenous professionals like myself who come from interstate, don't have that cultural knowledge. So we're trying to incorporate a bicultural pairing model where we work side by side with local people when we do our outreach. I guess the other thing I just want to add is we need to be appropriately funded to be able to provide culturally appropriate care. At the moment, we're scraping different buckets of money from many, many different grants, and I'm worried where it's headed with Support at Home. I think it's only going to get worse. For us, we need stable block funding to be able to have sustainable workforce and a sustainable vision. Thanks.
Thank you. And great love for Ben here in the room. Thank you so much. So I think, I think your comment or question was really for the department, but I know that Sonia touched on some of these issues this morning, and I think there's many department people in the room. I know that these messages are being heard and will be taken back to government, but Maria, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, we are working quite closely to try and, make it easier, but I probably can't talk about, the funding issue is a known challenge. probably can't add more to that.
Okay, thank you. So only a couple of minutes left, but I'll sort of combine the two questions I have in front of me. Any advice for small organisations who are already exceptionally busy with day-to-day operations? It's a juggle between business as usual and implementation activities. So I might throw to maybe Gayle for quick answer. You've got like 1 minute, Gayle.
Look, I think know that you've got friends. I think reach out. Everybody's happy for a call. We're more than happy for a call, and we'd love the opportunity to be able to share resources. So I think that's our best option. And use the resources that are being provided from others, I think, is really important as well.
Yeah, thank you. And then a final one that was aimed at me. How will the staff training compliance be measured? Key indicators, and what does it look like for the providers, keeping in mind the limitations like shortage of staff? So I think you heard Liz talk about this yesterday. On the 1st or the 2nd of November, we're not going to be knocking on everyone's door and saying, show us that you're 100% compliant, show us that you put all of your staff through all of the training that you've planned for. So we are taking a proportionate, risk-based approach. We understand the mountain of work that you have had to do and are still working towards to be ready for the new Act. We'll always put the safety of older people first, and that's really where we'll sort of lean in and engage very strongly with you. But please be assured on things like training, we're looking that you have a training strategy in place that has looked at the competency of your workforce and the types of services and the types of older people that you're delivering services to. And we're looking for a strategy that aligns with those elements, and then we're looking for evidence that you're delivering it. But we know that you can't, 100% of your staff will not have achieved every training module at any particular point in time. The standards do list a number of particular topics that you must cover if you're covered by the quality standards. They're all, there's free resources on our website, on the department, university, other resources that can help you put together training packages to cover those topics. There's no mandated particular course or provider to deliver a course. We recognise that you need to be able to put together a package that works for you and for your workforce and the services that you're delivering. And certainly at the Commission, our mission is to support you in that in the best way that we can. I've got the red sign. My time is up. Our time is up. So I'd like to say thank you so much to our panel for their generous time and advice and putting ourselves up here. Thank you.
Yes, a very big thank you indeed to you, Bron, for facilitating that marvellous session, and to Gayle, Ben, Fonda, Philomena and Maria for their analysis, for their practical strategies and for their richly cultural insights, very valuable insights as all of you head into the final sprint for the 1st of November. So would you please once again thank our panel. In a few moments now, and I know that they're just preparing to come up to the stage where there will be a little bit of a changeover of furniture, but we're going to hear in just a few moments from Commissioner Liz Heffron-Webb and from the Department of Health, Disability and Ageing First Assistant Secretary Amy Laffin. Liz and Amy are going to discuss the priorities for the year ahead and, of course, what they mean for you. And, as usual, when they've finished their contributions and their discussion, it's your chance to be part of the conversation, which has been such an outstanding element in this conference over the last couple of days. It will be your final chance, of course, for the conference to ask questions either directly in person or through the app, both of which have been working very well indeed. But thank you for that. In anticipation, we now have Liz and Amy in place. So I'll hand over to you, Liz, and you're going to kick off the session discussion, and then facilitate the questions. Many thanks.
Thanks so much, Richard. So last session, I know sometimes people sort of hive off in the middle of it. I'll just be taking names of people who don't stay right to the end, and who you work for. Just kidding, you can't really see from here. So what we thought was, we've had so much focus on 1st November and everyone is super focused on that, but we thought it was good to just raise our gaze a little bit and think about where next is the department and the Commission going to focus our work over the coming years, and what's on the horizon, just to give you a bit of a sense of our thinking. And as Richard said, we'll take about 10 minutes of questions. So I'm just going to pass to Amy to kick off where the department's thinking about for the future.
Thanks, Liz, and hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this wrap-up session. So I think we had on there my job title, and I think for non-government people, job titles are always a bit hard to interpret. So for context, my division leads the aged care legislation and the rules, the new standards, quality indicators and worker screening. And we also developed things like SIRS, restrictive practices and governance requirements. And I also have a team that conducts program assurance work on home care and care minutes. So that also might help in terms of what questions you ask me at the end. So I've been working in the department on aged care for about 10 years now. So like many of you, I've seen a lot of changes in that time. But even with that background, it's genuinely an exciting time to be part of the government's reform agenda. Like you, the department is full steam ahead preparing for the new Aged Care Act on the 1st of November and the raft of changes that will hit the system with it. But this is really a new beginning for the aged care system, and I want to assure you that the department side of things is a new beginning too. So our work is not going to slow down at all. You've heard a lot over the past couple of days about the things happening in aged care from some of the most significant shapers of Australia's aged care system, including the Minister, the Commissioner, our Deputy Secretary, advocates such as the Chair of the Council of Elders and the First Nations Commissioner. So by now you have a good appreciation of the state of play for aged care. You know the start date, you know that it's been deferred, you know that older Australians are at the centre of our reforms, you know that the new Act changes the way that aged care system is governed, and you know that the Commission will be taking a measured approach to compliance. So that's where we are now, but a few things about the year to come. So one of our overriding goals for both this year and next will be implementing the government's aged care reforms while ensuring the quality of care is maintained or improved and never declines. We'll continue to work to integrate service delivery, working to ensure that older people have seamless access and continuity across health, aged care and disability sectors. So I was really pleased to see the government's decision to join health, aged care and disability together all in the one portfolio. And in my view, that provides so many opportunities to look at duplication and barriers that are impacting citizens, providers, workers, regulators and government itself. So exciting things to come in that space, I think. We'll also continue to promote and support the rights of older people to make their own decisions as active participants in their own care and through the new role of the nominated supporter. And so that will include supporting the sector to put the principles of supported decision-making into practice. We know that My Aged Care website remains an important resource for older people. And so we'll be refreshing the website with new and updated content, including training and interactive tools to support understanding and easier navigation of the aged care system. We'll also be monitoring the new aged care standards and with a particular focus on food and nutrition, dementia care, clinical care, governance and diversity, with the older person's voice central to the development. We're already starting to commence planning for the 5-year periodic review of the strengthened aged care standards to ensure that they reflect best practice and meet changing needs. In terms of star ratings, we'll be enhancing that system and improving transparency of care in residential aged care homes by amending staffing and compliance ratings based on last year's feedback and evaluation and the legislative changes. So from 1st of October, aged care homes will need to meet both mandatory care minutes targets to achieve 3 or more stars. And we'll also be amending the compliance rating to reflect the new regulatory framework and incorporate graded assessments against the strengthened aged care standards. So we have been doing some listening and adjusting already. One example of that is the quality standards, which happened through extensive consultation. Another example is removing the caps on gardening and cleaning services. So after quite vigorous feedback to government from the sector and older people and advocates, that's changed. And as recently as last week, the government introduced amending legislation to ensure that the Aged Care Act 2024, including support at home and the new regulatory framework, operate as intended, and the release of the rules is imminent. Many of you have given us great feedback, which has influenced the end result. We'll also continue on our program assurance work, and that's not just about putting a magnifying glass on providers, but it also provides us with a feedback loop that helps us to improve and update our own material and sector guidance and to develop better training and education resources. So that's the priorities for 2026, and it might seem like a bit of a to-do list of goals, but the one thing that unites them is the singular focus on improving quality, safety and transparency for older people from government providers and workers alike. Over the next year, we'll continue to work with the sector and listen to what older people and providers and advocates have to say. We'll work hard to keep our eye on the ball because reforms are not a set and forget, but rather an important body of work in motion. We can't do this without your support, and only by working together can we build community trust in the reforms. It's important work. In the meantime, we have a lot of work in progress, and we look forward to working with you to make Australian aged care the best in the world. So, handing back over to Liz.
Thanks so much, Amy. So I was going to reflect on the areas that I guess the Commission will be focusing on in addition to the million BAU things we have to do under the Act, under the new Act, and to maintain standards and all the normal work. We respond to 10,000 complaints a year. We have to, do audits of care homes and home care. There's an enormous amount of kind of just ongoing work that the Commission does. But the things I wanted to just reflect on quickly here are where I think we're not doing enough. So the first one I do want to talk about is First Nations. I don't think as a Commission we have sufficient cultural capability. I don't think we are supporting our First Nations older people well enough when they want to engage with the Commission to make a complaint, etc. I don't think we're supporting the organisations well enough when we engage with them. I think it's an area that we need to put more resource and more effort into. And I take very seriously the feedback from the First Nations Aged Care Commissioner that we are not seen as a culturally safe organisation. We will set up a special unit to undertake that work. And so it'll take time. These are big cultural shifts, but I'm really committed that when we see you all in a year, we will have made some real progress on that, and we'll hold ourselves to that. The second thing I want to talk about is SIRS. I didn't know Amy invented it. It's not really working great. It's probably better than what was there before, which was nothing, but from our perspective, we get 70,000 a year, each take at least an hour to assess. I can only imagine from your perspective what a nightmare it is. So there's some practical things we're going to do. We're setting up a team to do some reform. We're going to try and improve the form. We're going to try and make it more accessible, get better triage. And ultimately, I guess, what we all want to do is work towards the prevention of these incidents, not just focus on documenting thousands and thousands of them. And so we have great expertise in the Commission. We have a restrictive practice unit. We have a lot of clinical expertise. So I want to really drive it into the prevention, early intervention space. In that context, and I'm really glad Philomena mentioned it, I think sexual safety is a big issue that we need to be on the front foot about, and that's something you'll hear more about shortly. There's been a lot of good work done, but we need to now engage in the conversation with you about how we manage those really difficult issues that come up. A lot of this is not straightforward. I totally understand that. But it's for me, it's really disturbing that we're recording a whole bunch of incidents and not really, getting involved in the solution. So that's what I want to do over the next year. I think the final thing for me is that clinical, non-clinical interface. It's something all of you work with, and we have a lot of expertise in the Commission, but I'm not always sure we're deploying it exactly in the right ways and at the right times, and so we're going to do a bunch of work about that as well. So those are the three things that I've been boring my staff rigid about since I sort of picked up that things were not as good as they should be, particularly in those areas. There'd be lots of others I could choose. There's also stuff that's going great and going really, really well, and I want to, shout out to the amazing people in the Commission. I know, no one does love a regulator usually, and so, but people are so devoted, so committed, so passionate, and a lot of them are just same as you. They're people who were in the sector. They've come to join us because they care deeply, and just feel really privileged to be given the opportunity to lead them. So that's all I wanted to say. We've got time. We've got lots of time for questions. So Amy, look out.
And I might just step in as one of the inventors of SIRS and say, I think it's really great that we're having a conversation which is how to make something better. So when we introduced that, we introduced it with all best intentions. We consulted on it, but over time we realised there's unintended consequences. So getting feedback from the sector and the Commission, getting a good sense of the data that we get through, and yes, we do make providers report a lot of data, we're aware of that. That helps us understand, and we're not afraid of making changes and tweaks which will improve the system. So rather than be defensive about SIRS, I'm really happy to hear that we've got a way forward, and we're really happy to work with the Commission on making SIRS better.
Thank you, Amy. Yay! All right, so we've got some good questions here. The first one's actually for the Commission. Will the Commission summarise the key action items out of the conference to support the sector? Yes, Susie? No rest at all for you. No, we've got lots of staff here. We've recorded all the sessions, so we will be able to go back through, and if you've fed questions through and you haven't had the chance to have them asked, we will be following all that up and trying to make sure we give enough feedback. Just out of interest, I submitted an anonymous question and it didn't get picked to be asked, so I know how you feel. It was a bit unfair of me, but anyway. All right, here's one for you, Amy. What date will the rules be released, and on what website or link?
Oh, really specific questions. So, release of the rules is a decision for government, but when I said imminent, I do mean imminent. So we're not looking at months, we're not looking at weeks. I really hope we are looking at days for you to get that full consolidated rules. It will be on the department's website, and we'll be advertising that quite widely. So if you make sure you follow our regular newsletter, that will provide the link to the rules. So I'm really hoping you'll see that very soon.
Just a little tip, when public servants say imminent, they mean a few days. When they say shortly, they mean a few weeks. And when they say soon, they mean they've no idea.
But I can't possibly comment. But I do choose my words carefully.
All right, here's another really specific one, and it's got 21 votes. Any updates on the monthly care statement expectations and trials being done with Liquid Interactive? Are we likely to have a system that supports us to deliver this without the administrative burden?
That's a very tough question, and I have my colleague Ingrid Leonard in the crowd who knows more about this specifically. But what I do know is probably this is not one of the most seamless reforms that we've introduced. We've heard a lot of feedback as part of our consultations. We are really cognizant of the additional administrative burden that providers feel with that. So I think the answer is we're still working on it. We're not going to tell you that, they start in a month's time and make sure you've got your monthly care statements ready. We're still in that listening phase and that solution finding phase. So if you have great ideas on that, we'd be really happy to hear it.
Thanks so much, Amy. Now one for me. What does building trust between the Commission and providers look like? So that's a really good question. I can only answer in the sense of my experience in the rest of my life. What building trust looks like is when we do what we say we're going to do, when we're honest and upfront and as transparent as possible about any concerns or issues we have, when we assume the best of each other, so assume the best intent of each other, when we make space for ethical conversations to happen. That's to me what trust relationships look like in my life and in my work life. And so to me, I hope that's what it looks like. It means I'm very open to hearing feedback and receive a lot of feedback internally, externally, and there's no issue too small for me to be interested in because, I can't always solve them, but it's about building, for me, a tapestry, a sense of the whole picture. So let's, if we've got concerns, please, I'd ask you to open up, let us know, tell us where we're going wrong. We go wrong all the time, as I said in my opening speech. So we're just an organisation filled with people with good intent, and sometimes we don't get it right. So that to me is what trust looks like, but here's hoping that's what other people are interested in, and we can build that together. Thank you. Another one for me. So thanking me for my honesty and transparency around CERS, would you be willing for a provider advisory panel to be convened for an opportunity to provide input into the CERS work? Absolutely, I think that's essential. And we will be doing that and including with, a range of providers, small, large, diverse, remote, multicultural, First Nations, etc., because we do need to get all those perspectives in there. Amy, for you, the next one is about, in the next 12 months, will the department be reflecting on CHSP, its future, the sustainability of organisations, and the rights of our clients to continuity of quality services?
Absolutely. What we have heard from these couple of days is there is probably a bit of a gap. There probably isn't enough information out there for CHSP providers, and as we said earlier, we'll absolutely take that on board, and I'll take that back to my colleagues in the department. I think, you know, once we get the new Aged Care Act, once we hit the 1st of November, then very quickly our focus will be turning to the CHSP transition. So we haven't forgotten, but perhaps we've put it on the back burner and haven't been clear enough about that to people. So thank you for your comments.
I've messed this up and lost the questions, so can someone hand me another iPad while we're doing that? I do remember the last question, which was due to come, which is someone asked me, what is the clinical, non-clinical interface? I wish I knew. I don't know. People keep talking about it. I'm not a clinician. So it obviously means something to some people because people keep saying we've got to work it out. So I assume it's how we bring the different sets of skills, clinical and non-clinical, together to make the best outcomes for older people. I'm assuming it's that. And that's what we really need to do some work on internally. And it's something I assume every provider works on as well. But yeah, again, I'm on a journey. And so next year I'll report back if I've worked out what it is or what it isn't. Thank you. Next one, I don't know who this is for. I think it's for you. Is quality indicator reporting still coming for in-home care providers?
Yes, is the short answer. So I think we've put out some material on what those indicators will be, or if we haven't, we soon will. I think for us it's a matter of timing now. So obviously we want to give support at home time to bed down before we introduce the indicators and have providers start reporting on the indicators. We don't want you to have to do that from day one. So still coming, and I think government's commitment was kind of a year after the implementation of support at home, those quality indicators will follow.
Thank you. The next one is the HCP sector needs stronger guidelines in how to manage associated providers and the expectations, especially in relation to the expectations of large companies such as suppliers of equipment and meals, etc., to engage with compliance. So that's a statement, not a question, but we will take it as a question. I assume that's something we're both thinking about, but Amy, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I think just the way that kind of associated providers and subcontracting has blossomed in aged care is something that we really need to look at, and we do have some new obligations as part of the new Aged Care Act, and so I completely agree that we need to get some more information and some guidance out there for the sector.
Fantastic, thank you. Would you please share a new organisational structure for the Commission? So much has changed. We do have our org structure on our website now, which you can have a look at, but we are still refreshing and changing to adapt to what we think are the needs going forward, but we will try and get the latest one updated as soon as possible so you can all have a look. All right, here's another one for you, Amy. With the wonderful maturity of the reporting systems and data analysis, can we now move to biannual reporting instead of quarterly quality reporting to reduce the burden?
I'm not sure, and I think we've got a lot of work to do on data. So we've over the years, as you all know, we've increased the reporting burden. There are more and more things that we collect data on. I think our next phase is getting a good sense of what we use that data for and whether that data is useful, and removing some of those things that are no longer useful for the department or that aren't telling us the things that we thought was going to tell us when we first introduced that data. So I would say that's kind of on the agenda for the next year as well, is looking at that and the usefulness of the data, and then also being able to provide, compiling that data and being able to provide that back out to the sector so that you're able to learn and benchmark from that as well.
Thanks, Amy. This is probably for both of us, but you might want to go first. how will we be engaging and partnering with older people moving forward to receive their perspective on the changes and the impact to them, especially support at home?
So we have consumer reference groups. We also talk regularly to the Council of Elders and seek to understand what the concerns are, what information needs to be provided. So always trying to seek input from older people themselves to better understand. So we'll be continuing to do that into the future. It's not, as I said, we're just at the beginning. It's not just about the reforms are over, the act's in and we close our doors. We'll be wanting to understand the impact of the reforms, whether we've got things right, whether they need to be tweaked. So engaging directly with consumers will absolutely be part of that next step.
Yeah, and we'll obviously be part of those engagement, but we also have our consumer panel, consumer and families panel that we utilise. We engage extremely often with CODA and OPAN and other advocacy groups who provide us with, their perspectives on the issues they're getting raised with them. So we will absolutely be monitoring the experience of older people and how they respond to what are hopefully positive changes. Next question. This conference we've heard a lot about funding gaps around social and emotional support, reablement and allied health services. Can we expect some changes in this area?
I don't know that we can necessarily expect changes, but we can absolutely take the feedback back to government and to provide them with advice on all that we've heard as part of this conference. So I thank you for that feedback, and we absolutely will pass it on.
Thank you. Will there be funding for IT systems going forward to support the reporting requirements?
Great question. So there has been some grants for IT systems, and we're regularly talking to IT providers. So we have IT providers covered in the transition task force that provides advice to the department, to the commission, and to government. Any kind of funding provided would be a decision for government, but we have heard you on that.
Thank you. This next one's for me. Does the Commission acknowledge that small residential aged care services with single sites do not have an adequate voice on industry panels? If so, should there be a panel for smaller providers? If not, why not? I absolutely acknowledge that. I think you're right. I do think we need some more representation from smaller providers. I'm very happy to talk to our team, our engagement team, about how we go about that. I've just got the signal. Sorry. I think there's someone wants to speak at the microphone.
Hi, my name's Karina. I'm the CEO of the Australian Filipino Community Services. We're based here in Victoria and predominantly a CHSP provider. My question is, firstly, related to CHSP. Currently, CHSP providers are catching the gaps of clients needing services without referral codes, and currently under our funding model, we're able to use our funds and be a bit flexible for those people needing urgent services. Has the department considered how providers will be supported to continue this vulnerable, to support these vulnerable members of the community so that they're not disadvantaged? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. CHSP isn't one of my responsibilities, and I don't mean to dodge the question. I just want to let you know that I'm not able to provide as specific an answer as I'd hope. But these are the sorts of things that I know that the team is grappling with and thinking about. How do we kind of make the regulation consistent with CHSP without losing some of the flexibility and things that make it great? I will pass on those comments, so thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a question about, although there's many exceptions for government entities, will there be any guidance published to assist government entities understand what will be expected for governance and in the regulatory process? That's something I might take on notice. I know we do talk to some state government entities who are providers, but I don't know whether we have a plan for publishing material specifically for them, but I'm willing to have a look and see what we can do.
And I know we've been having a lot of conversations in the kind of deeming and registration space, so I just encourage you to contact us and ask us questions, and if we can put together resources, we'd be happy to do that.
Fantastic, thank you. Question about carers. Where are the carers in this reform? The Act really does not, they took the question, there it is. The Act really does not actively include them, but without them our whole system would collapse. So I don't know, Amy, whether you want to tackle that. Obviously we do hear a lot from carers. Carers are often the people making complaints. We have carers participation in our consumer panels, etc. But I don't know if you want to talk further about that.
I mean, likewise, we incredibly value carers, the work that they do, and also the perspective that they have. I think we're trying to, formalise some of the role of carers as part of our supporter framework. And the other thing I'd add is that, as I mentioned when in my previous speech, the movement of disability into our department, we also have carers being moved into the department, which I think again is an excellent move and will provide us with greater opportunities and linkages there.
Thanks, Amy. How do you plan to acknowledge high-performing providers doing a great job to profile excellence in action? So I think we did talk last evening at the registration session and about the ability for people to be considered for excellence in performance of the standards. We're really looking forward to that because we really do want to highlight best practice. We're very excited to see how that rolls out, and I think we'll get some experience of that over the next year, and hopefully it will give us an opportunity to showcase. We do sometimes get in trouble for showcasing good practice because we're told we're favouring particular providers, and so I just want to put that out there that is a complex area for us actually. But I think it's really important, and we need to think about how to do it well. I don't know if you want to say anything further, Amy. Could we have providers from multi-purpose services involved in provider advisory groups? Sure. Yes.
Yep.
Happy to have you. But we'll come back to you on opportunities to engage and join those groups. So there's a question about CALD organisations. They're expected to be everything to older people: provider, advocate, navigator, representative, due to a lack of accessible information, services and supports. It says the new Act doesn't allow this. How will government view this and what will the consequences be?
So I'm not sure about the reference about the new Act not allowing it, but I think, we value the work of organisations that support CALD people, and if there is anything that we can do or resources you need, then let us know, and we're really happy to engage with you.
Thank you, Amy. I'm just going to pick a question around, will ACCOs continue to have their registration and auditing fees waived? Yes, is the answer to that. So I can solve that one quickly. Yes. CALD people often face language barriers that prevent them from fully benefiting from CHSP and HCP services. What steps can the Commission and AgeCare take to improve accessibility and support for them? So I think we did talk earlier about the number of languages that the material is translated into, and also the availability of telephone interpreter service, but I don't know, Amy, is there anything else you want to add to that one?
No, I think, it's useful too is if you want to provide us with direct feedback on what those barriers are, and we can work together on addressing them.
All right, we might go to the last question, I think, because we're running out of time. Given the ongoing shift in aged care towards a less medicalised model, the Care Minutes framework strengthens RN, EEN and PCA numbers, which is welcome but continues to prioritise a quick fix medical approach and heavy reliance on pharmaceuticals. Do you want to make any comment on that?
I mean, and I think Sonia touched on it a little bit this morning. It's kind of, you know, where we've ended up as a result of the Royal Commission. Is it somewhere that will stay? I'm not sure. It is a bit different in terms of, you know, in kind of right across the new standards and other things, we're looking at outcomes, and this is more about kind of an input measure. So certainly something that we know why we're here today. We've gotten to this point, as Sonia said, the belt and braces that have been required as part of the response to the Royal Commission. But we will continue to look at it. We will continue to look at impacts. We will continue to look at how, you know, productivity gains and other things, you know, might change the way that care minutes should be applied. So it's not a set and forget, and really happy to receive feedback as we move into the future.
All right, thank you so much for your questions. And I just want to thank Amy for joining us on the panel today and for being so open to have a go at the questions. And so thank you very much. So I'll just make a few remarks before I hand to Richard. It's been a really valuable and insightful 2 days for me, and I hope it has been for you. And I really want to thank you all for coming and your deep engagement. It's been a really rewarding experience for me to meet so many people, to hear so many different perspectives, but also to be made aware where we're missing the mark and where we need to ensure that other voices are not, you know, the voices that are not being heard, and how we can amplify those. I'm really excited about the future and the opportunity of continual improvement, as well as, of course, the new Aged Care Act. You've heard from the Minister, you've heard from the First Nations Aged Care Commissioner, Andrea Kelly, you've heard from the Department, the Commission, peak bodies, peers. But the message I want to leave you with is we are here to support you. We are not just the regulator. We are here to safeguard, to prevent things going wrong, but we can only do that in collaboration with you. And so I just ask that you continue to offer your collaboration to us, and let's keep building a relationship of trust. Finally, I just want to acknowledge my team, my amazing team, my team of executives who've done a lot of work hosting panels, etc. And I also want to thank the amazing Susie, who's the master of everything that is conference. She's had an increasingly harried look on her face over the last month, but it came together beautifully. And as I often say, my key skill as a manager is to outsource my worrying, and I've outsourced my conference worrying to Susie, and it's been a very successful strategy. But I also want to thank my personal staff member, Anne Davies, who's my executive officer extraordinaire, who has looked after me, including with a really dud knee. She's carried my bag. She's given me the notes at the right time in the right place. She's shepherded me to turn up at the right venue. And I couldn't survive without her. I want to thank all of Susie's team who've been running around, helping everyone. They've been in the orange shirts, and I want to thank them all for the excellent playlist for the dinner last night. A lot of 80s and 90s there, reflecting our age cohort, mine and Susie's anyway. So it was a great event. I want to thank Jean, who was just fantastic and an absolute hoot. And I want to thank Richard for bringing it all together and hosting us so beautifully. And I'll pass back to you, Richard. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, well, thank you very much indeed, Liz, and of course also Amy. What a wonderfully thoughtful and a very frank discussion with very practical responses, addressing the nitty-gritty of all of those questions that came in this last session. A really great way to wrap up the conference. And a big thank you also, Liz, for your closing remarks on this year's conference. Very special thanks to all of our panellists and presenters. Of course, Liz touched on the wonderful work that they've done, but they really have, over the course of these 2 days, they've so generously shared their expertise, their learnings, their strategies, their advice on how best to prepare for the upcoming reforms. And of course, to all of you, our in-person and our virtual delegates, thank you so much for your contributions, particularly taking part in the conversations through your questions, both spoken and through the app. We really do hope, of course this is the object of the exercise, that you are feeling better supported, better informed, better prepared for the new Act, and that you've got now a greater sense of confidence and a greater understanding of what you need to do, and, as Liz has been emphasising, of the support and the collegial support that is available to get you there. Now, just one more thing that we would ask of you. It would be hugely helpful if you were able to complete the conference evaluation survey just by taking a couple of minutes right now before you actually leave the conference. We would be really grateful. The Commission, I know, is very, very keen to hear your views, not just on the quality and value of what's been provided, but also very much on how you're feeling after these 2 days of learning. Do you actually feel more confident, better supported? Do you have a clearer understanding of what is ahead? So the Commission is here to help you with that every step of the way, and your feedback really helps in that process. It's a great way to reflect on what you will take back to your teams. On a personal note, it's been a great pleasure to play a small role once again in this sharing of plans, practicalities, challenges and aspirations. So thank you for that opportunity. I wish all of you a safe journey home. Thank you again and good afternoon.